In this tutorial, we will walk through the process of connecting to Aptogen PowerTools from an IBM Business Automation workflow. From the Workflow Center, open an existing process app or create a new one. Click the plus symbol next to the Services tab and select External Service. Select Java, REST, or Web Service and click Next. Choose REST Service URL from the drop-down list of options, then give the service a descriptive name. Enter the PowerTools Swagger document URL in the URL field. You can find the URL by browsing to portal.aptogen.com, selecting API products, then selecting Aptogen PowerTools for IBM BPM. Click the API definition on the left, and under the documentation section, there are links to the OpenAPI version 2 and 3 definitions. For the best import experience, copy the Swagger OpenAPI 2.0 link and paste it into the URL field in the External Service Wizard. In the SSL configuration field, enter the following value: Public Internet SSL settings. Be sure to capitalize it as shown. Unfortunately, the wizard does not provide a drop-down selector, so you'll have to manually type in the value. Hovering over the field will display an explanatory dialog that also contains the necessary value. Click Next to continue. The wizard will display a list of available operations. If it fails to do so, or you receive an error, go back a step, download the Swagger definition document from the Aptogen portal to your machine, then use the REST service from local file option instead. Click Next when the list of operations is successfully displayed. Create a new server instance or choose an existing server. This is simply a proxy instance that allows your workflows to connect to the external endpoint. If creating new, provide a descriptive name and click Finish. When the service has completed provisioning, click the Binding tab in the Service Details page. Enter your API key from the app created in the Aptogen portal. Click the name of the server created or selected in the final step of the creation wizard. In the SSL configuration field, type in the same public internet SSL settings value used previously when connecting to the Swagger definition. All other fields can be left at their default values. PowerTools is now configured for use in your BPM environment. To invoke an operation, create a new workflow by clicking the plus symbol next to the Services tab and selecting Service Flow. Provide a name for the service flow, then click Finish. To begin configuring the service, drop an activity into the designer. Select the activity, then the Implementation tab at the bottom of the screen. Choose Service Task. An implementation section will appear to the right. Click the Select button, then choose the PowerTools service. Note that it will be displayed using the friendly name that you supplied when you were completing the wizard. Once selected, a list of available operations will appear in the same section. Choose the desired operation, then click the Data Mapping tab on the left. Input and output mapping fields will now appear. When the definition was imported, BPM automatically created data objects to match the references in the Swagger document. To map your data to these objects, navigate to the Variables tab at the top and select or create a new variable. Click the plus symbol to generate a new parameter. By default, a string parameter will be created. Select it, then click the Select button next to the variable type in the configuration panel. Scroll through the list to find the matching PowerTools input object. This will generate the necessary parameters that the endpoint expects. Do the same for the output variable. Note that many PowerTools operations share similar output types, such as string or number. The data mapping panel will show you the exact object types the service expects. If you wish to set a default value for testing, check the Has Default option and enter the desired parameter values. If you are unsure what the appropriate value should be, for example, a choice from a predefined selection, the API documentation in the Aptogen portal lists all available input and output parameter options. For example, the convert currency operation, in addition to providing examples of sample inputs that can be used and defining the outputs, also link to the input definitions. Clicking on the input definition will define each one of the available input types and its options. For example, this list of available currency parameters that can be used in the input. Once the variables are in place, switch back to the diagram, select the action, and click on the Data Mapping tab. The newly created variables are now available for selection by clicking on the yellow and green bubbles icon next to the input field. Note that the API key value is not required at this stage unless you wish to override the master API key you already set for the service connection. If you enter default values for your newly created variables, you can now click the Debug tab and run the workflow to see the results. Otherwise, configure your workflow as desired to set the input parameter values, then debug when ready.